probably my favorite one on the planet. Yeah, it is. VFV.to VOO. They're I literally one investment you can tell anyone to ever buy that is good forever. I think it's good forever is VFV. Why'd you pick it?
Yeah,
I picked it
again,
up.
so when I learned about the stock market and what that all means, like when I grew up, I knew about the different, the Dow Jones and all that. It was on the TV, it was a ticker that went by. I didn't really know what that was all about, but understanding a little bit more about what the S&P 500 actually is and what those companies are and why that, and for your viewers too, I'm sure you've spoken about it in some of your videos, but VFV is a basket of stocks in that tracking the top 500 companies in the United States. That said, there are other ones out there like ZSP. So it's like buying a Toyota or a Ford, and they
Yeah.
will manage those funds slightly differently. So it's important to look at how they each perform against each other over longer periods of time, not in the short period. So that one was a no-brainer. A lot of people talked about it when I looked at the growth, same thing, chart stuff. It made a sense to put money in there, especially when I wanted exposure to, like you mentioned, Google and all the big companies, because I get it indirectly by investing in that.
It's what are you going to do with VFV when you're in retirement? Because that is still a growth stock. You're not really, there's no real dividend on it.
No,
What do you
there
do?
isn't. So there's a couple of things I've thought about when I get to retirement. So, you can start selling. It's continually growing. So it's not like when I sell it, it's unrealized gains right now, but it'll be realized then. It'll be worth more. I can then flip that over into a fund like HYLD, which will then generate some monthly income. So that would be one way to do that. And then, of course, if you're looking at some fixed income, that may or may not be part of the strategy. I could look at some of those things. So essentially, as I get into or closer to retirement, we're going to transition. But one thing I learned recently that I think is important to keep in mind is I say I'm retiring at 60, but that doesn't mean that I don't have more time of investing after I retire. So
Mhm.
that growth, what I thought was 8 years, and if you watch some of my recent videos, I talk about it, it's probably not. It's probably more like 10 or maybe even 15 years. It depends on how big the portfolio gets. The last video that I did, I use a tool that will tell me how much the portfolio, reasonably be worth, and it's far more than I said the goal of 500,000. So yeah, we might want to keep that growing. I have two kids. We're probably going to have to look at passing that on. Now we do have an RESP, but so those are some things I'm thinking about. That time frame is actually a lot longer than I originally thought.
Let's talk about that time frame. We were talking off camera how I think I'm going to live till 200 and all that stuff, right? Hey, I really do. And by the time this podcast gets released, people will see that there's like a longevity podcast. People will see that I had talked to passive Canadian investor, another YouTuber, and he had a portfolio he did for his sort of what he was thinking of like a mock portfolio for retirement. He kept VFV in there. He didn't because my original plan was take VFV, convert that thing in the last 5 years to a high paying dividend yield, just milking that thing for crazy 30,000 a month, something rate income.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm not dead at 65. I'm not dead at 75. If I'm a dude who thinks he's going to live till he's 200, wait a second, I'm still a growth investor till I'm like 100 and something. So I changed my whole thesis has changed now. I'm going, maybe I'll just hold on to VFE, sell a portion of it, like
Exactly.
25% off the bat to be like, I want to officially never do anything anymore after 65, but I'm a growth investor still primarily, but I've just accrued so much growth up to 65 that I can actually now technically be both a
Yeah.
heavy dividend investor. That's what I'm thinking now.
So another thing too for your viewers is something else that's important to consider is this notion of the asset allocation. What does that mean? Well, how much of the pie do I want in each one of these? And this particular fund, for me, it's somewhere in that 35 to 45% range of the whole portfolio. So the numbers that you just talked about, yeah, let's say I'm 18, because those are the people that I really want to benefit from this. But let's say you're, I don't know, in your mid 30s and you have young kids. I want you to influence your kids by watching our videos. But
Yeah.
that VFV over time is going to become huge part of your portfolio. So like you said, you only need to sell a portion of it to then start generating income. It could be $50,000. You never know.
Yeah.
And you made another good point, which I think is interesting, is so the calculator that I use asks you to put what age do you think you'll live to? If we had asked that question when I was young, People might say like 70, maybe 80. Now we're seeing people living into their hundreds. So nobody really knows. So that's an important number too when you're looking at how much money I'm going to save for retirement because you might retire at 60, but you might live to 100 plus years old. Got to
Yeah.
think about that.
If you live a relatively healthy lifestyle, you'll probably live till you're 120. I interviewed the CEO of Longevity Life Science, a guy named Jerry Kroll. He's also CEO of electric vehicle company. This guy is like highly established. This guy knows how to make things happen. I downloaded his app, the Longevity app. You should download it if you have an iPhone or an Android. And there's a little test you can take. And it said, hey, you're going to live till you're 122 without any sort of, 'cause I don't drink, I don't smoke. Right. So that's a pretty easy one. And I work out a couple days a week. I'm not that sedentary. So there's a couple things working to my advantage there. So I was thinking, okay, now I got at a bare minimum, if I don't get hit by a bus, I should
Yeah.
start planning around that a little bit because, I want to be one of those guys where I hit like 120 and then my health goes to shit. I have 2 years of bad health, but I'm pretty good all the way up until that point.
Yeah.
So, which means that now I got to kind of rearrange my brain and how I think about finances where, you know,
Well, and there's a lot to be said too. So if you're opening this, I know you want to talk about all my ETFs, but this is great because it's making me think about stuff. So there are there's some interesting I was going to say studies, but I might not be able to back that up. But the bottom line is when people retire, you change. So you go from I'll just use the average example. You have a 9 to 5 job Monday to Friday, and next Saturday you retire. What's your plan? Mentally, you're going to change. Physically, you're going to change. So you have to think about all that stuff. Now, let's take what you just said, 60 to 120. What are you going to do in all that time? Now, I think after talking to you for a few minutes, I get where you're coming from. You could do this stuff. Even myself, I see this as an exit strategy when I leave. And in fact, the people that I work with could benefit because there's always new people coming in. That would keep me mentally stimulated and physically going. Because a lot of people, they retire and what happens? Poof.
Yep.
That's the end
Yep.
because they got nothing to do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You need some sort of purpose after retirement to keep you going. If you don't have that, you'll just fall apart. They see that. What's that? Another imaginary statistic. It's, people health declines 10 years after retirement for most people because they got nothing going on, right?
Exactly.
You can only travel and eat good dinners for so long before you become bored of it, right? You need some sort of structure, something to work towards. Both my parents are retired, but they had grandkids and stuff, and we keep them busy with that. And
Exactly.
they got a little community of other old people. Like I tell my parents that they're running a senior home at their house now because it's just like when I go to visit them, like they live in Victoria.
Yeah.
Every time I go to visit them, it's just like them and like a group of seniors that just congregate at their house and hang out. So I'm like, okay, they're good. They created like a retirement home. Funny thing is, my parents actually worked in a retirement home their whole lives.
Oh,
They
really?
were, yeah, there were those care aides that would take care of
Yeah.
elderly people in retirement. So now they're running their own facility with family and
Oh,
friends.
wow.
Yeah, it's technically.